It's been nearly 4 years and now I finally have another hobby vlog. Hello and welcome to another video here from SDF Wargaming Studio. My name is Andreas, Norwegian Viking, and this is my hobby vlog number 127. Now, it's been nearly 4 years since my last installment of my hobby vlog. I had a look at the video and it seems that the video was published like me sitting in the old studio as well, in the couch. Well, a lot of things has happened since then. We moved the studio. I moved out of the city. I had twins. There was a pandemic, and for all that time I have been painting some, not a lot, but some, I had a thought when we were making our Happy Holidays video for 2023 that when I really want to get back into producing my hobby vlogs and kind of upping my quality a bit. What I mean about that is my old hobby vlogs were for the most part filmed in my office with a mobile phone, handheld, shaky, not zooming, not focusing, and I want to do something better. So what I've done is I have grabbed every single miniature I think I've painted from my last hobby vlog was released until December 2023. So I've not taken the small amount of models I painted so far in January 2024, and I've compiled them. I've taken some, I think, nice videos of them. You'll be the judge of that, of course. I'll probably try to have a painted miniatures counter, and I'll narrate what I'm shooting as well. I'll try to give you where available, what colours I've used, what techniques I've used, and that's going to be it going forwards as well. So I will at least have one hobby vlog for every month. So at the start of February you'll see my painting progress of January, and so forth and so on. So that'll probably be a Wednesday or a Monday or a Tuesday video. I'm not completely sure yet, but we will see when that happens. But for now, please enjoy the work I've done painting miniatures for the better part of 4 years, and I'm hoping that it won't be that long until I release my next installment. So who do we have here first? Well, it is Theodred, foot and mounted, putting me on 2 models. This was painted back in 2019, and we needed Theodred for the Grand Campaign. Now, at the time, I wasn't particularly happy with painting horses. Theodred as a model is fine. He's not the greatest sculpt ever. If I was to do a Theodred model now, I would rather convert up a Eomer, plastic Eomer pose instead, because I feel like that model has much finer dynamics. The horse is more beautiful, and yeah, this model was not particularly inspiring to paint. You can see it's kind of a rush job as well. I'm not even gone over with black on the base trim either. So sorry about the quality here. I do feel like more models are getting better in the future though. So my next project seemed to be from around 2020. We had definitely come on to the
fellowship portion of the Two Towers, where the fellowship, Sam, Frodo, Pippin all engage with the scouting Uruk-hai. So we have here the heroes from that force. It's Snaga, a Uruk-hai shaman. We have the Uruk-hai captain, two versions of Grishnak, both old and new. We have Vrashku, we have Ugluk, we have Mauher, and we have the three different poses of Shaku. Now, these models are painted up alongside with what I'm going to show you next. Now, however, this army isn't finished. There are more poses that I haven't done, but this is from the troops. I'll talk more about that when I get to them. These were cool to paint. Lots of beautiful sculpts here. I've gone for the slightly reddish skin rather than the dull browns. And yeah, I couldn't find my painting guide for this, sadly. I know I have it somewhere. Snaga was painted just popping up a picture of him and painting him however I felt like it. Same with Grishnak. But the Uruk-hai I painted using a method. And I painted all the Uruk-hai at the same time. So it was like 40 something models I painted at the time. And here you can see the rest of the army. I told you that it wasn't finished. I still have a bunch of plastic Uruk-hai scouts, as well as the banner and drum, and a few Uruk-hai trolls. Isengard trolls I want to paint up. So I'll actually talk more about that in my next hobby vlog, because I do have a big pile of shame, and I'll talk more about that next time. So these aren't some models I'm particularly happy with. 3 Morgul stalkers. I've painted up 3 that are nicer, and I painted up those a while ago, but we needed 6 or something for the grand campaign. I had some more, and I very quickly painted them up. These are not good. These are not great models. I'm very sorry. I can see that the camera didn't actually focus on them that much as well, but you're not missing out that much. These are very quick, were very roughly done, and I'm not too particularly proud of them. But here we come on to Eowyn, and this is a model I'm happy with. This is a very good model. Very old sculpt, but a fantastic model nonetheless. She has nice facial details. It is a good pose as well. And we needed the unarmored Eowyn for a couple of the scenarios in the grand campaign. So even though we used the elder Andreas and our top patron paired their Rohan models mostly for the grand campaign, we didn't have an armored Eowyn available at the moment. So I went into my my cupboard, shuffled through the Eowyn models I had there, and this was done in a one sitting, I think. Inspiring model to paint, and ever since I painted this model, I've had the Rohan itch. So we're definitely onto a Two Towers binge with my painting. Here we have Shaku, foot and mounted, and he is definitely a cool model, an old model as well, but he is a good sculpt. The only thing that was very hard for me to do was figuring out what parts of his backside was cloth and what wasn't. So I had to go look at some Weta Workshop and costuming details to get those things correctly. I think I painted him in a couple of sittings, the warg first and then the rider. But yeah, no real painting guide to him, as I didn't go through exactly any steps. I just picked some colours and went with it. So hopefully you think it's adequate. It isn't the best paint job ever. At this moment in time, I was more happy to churn out the models we needed for the Grand Campaign. And I didn't really have that much time. I know the twins were born at this point, and my memories are a bit foggy, as you can imagine from this time. So I don't really know exactly when this was painted, and in what time frame. But it is what it is. Now, sometimes inspiration does strike you, and I remember when we were scheduling around to playing Warg Attack that I was pining to paint Theoden, the unarmored version, on horse. And I think I spent the better part of a few weeks trying to scrounge up a dismount for him. And I still am. But I do have an extra one, so even though I can't scrounge up, I can do some conversion work, like removing his lower portion from the horse, and then re-sculpting the cloak and finding some suitable legs for him to stand on. So I'm really, yeah. I talked about this when I was doing the explanation for Eowyn, the unarmored version of her, and I do have the Rohan itch, and I still am, and I'm going to talk about that in my my January video that's coming out on the first week of February. So yeah, this is a nice sculpt, really nice sculpt. White horses are hard, especially with lighting, so there is more nuance to the horse than you can see on the camera. It isn't that flat, so it isn't showing off the best. I'm still working on my photo taking skills and video taking skills of miniatures that aren't part of like scenery and stuff, like contrasts. So I'm not the best, but yeah. And moving on from Theoden unarmored mounted, we're going into the rest of the forces we needed for the Warg Attack. So the next model we needed to get painted for Warg Attack was Gamling. So I had a couple of Gamling sculpts lying about. I had all of the different versions, even at the time. Was he unreleased or was he re-released? I can't remember. But I did have him from before. So I painted up all 4 versions of Gamling, both footed mounted, with and without the banner. And a nice sculpt as well. I painted the horses first, and then I painted all the things on the rider and the dismounts at the same time, so that they would be the same. So all 4 models were finished at the same time. So one thing I was dreading was doing the banner, and as you can see, I am still dreading it because there's so much work going on to a freehand banner, and I felt very intimidated by it. So that's something I will have to go back to when I am finishing my Rohan army at some point, hopefully in 2024. But that is a thing I will talk at length of later. and it's flashback time because we are on the portion of the Grand Campaign where we had to do an appendix scenario with Helm Hammerhand. And this is not the worst model to paint, by far. It is so much character, it has such fine detail, proper forge-old, well, now it's just a Warhammer model, isn't it? But it was a forge-old sculpt at the time. And yeah, it has such nice details, very inspiring to paint. And again, just giving me the feeling that I want to paint more Rohan. So yeah, that is something I have to do. More forces, more for my Dunland army. So this model was painted again for the Grand Campaign 2 Towers portion, and was painted alongside Frida and Gorulf as well, but they are not finished yet. And neither is the big portion of my additional Dunland models that came out from Forge-Old / Warhammer in the same time period. So we do have more models to show you, but this one was very, very cool. Really nice details with different textures of cloth. Really nice, like the only metal on the model is the knife. And I really like the extended edition scene with this model, and I try to do it as much justice as I could. What I want to do when I finish my Dunland army, and I have to note this for myself, is to go back and just do a trickle of blood from his arm. Because he cuts his hand. Just do a small scrape of blood on the knife and on his hand as well. So here is the Dunlending huscarls. We needed 6 huscarls and 6 of the riders for the Grand Campaign. The riders are not done, and neither is the next 6 huscarls and the last 6 riders and my 12 Crebain. So I do have some work to do on my Dunlending army still, but these are cool models. Sadly, something has happened to these guys during summer. I think some of the axes have warped a bit, so I have to retouch that a bit with a small yeah, some hot air out of a hairdryer. That's what it's called. But yeah, these are cool. I really like the aesthetics of the game sort of Dunland models. Yeah, they are really, really nice. Next up is my 12 Woes Warriors and Gunburgan. So I wanted to do something different with these guys. They are written about as stone men, so I really wanted them to have like greyish skin. So I mixed up a bunch of different paints and got like a dark, fleshy grey shale-like tone, and I really liked it. I think it turned out fantastic, in my honest opinion. Not to toot my own horn, I gave them some like Braveheart style bluish tattoos as well, to try to bring out the faces a bit more. There are only 3 different sculpts and plus Gunburgan, but they were relatively quick done. I want to get 3 more because when you are doing them as part of the proper unit in one of the legions, I think you need 15. So I have to source 3 more of these guys. So Aldor and Haleth, a pair that was needed for the Helmsteed portion of our Grand Campaign. Really cool models. Again, more Rohan models I just suddenly painted. I have so many Rohan heroes now I've painted and no Rohan army. That's something I need to be doing. But yeah, really cool looking models, really nice detailing. I don't think you can see particularly well Aldor's sunken eye, but yeah, these are fine. These are fantastic models, and I've given them good enough paint job. Nothing to toot my own horn about. They are nice, look good, but nothing special about them. But I really like the models. They are absolutely fantastic. Haldir in armor. So this was my first foray into the armored elves of Lothlorien, and Haldir and 24. I started 36 elves plus heroes and banner and hornblower and stuff like that. They are still not finished, as you will see in my next video, but I've finished quite a few models over the past few years in the Lothlorien theme. So you'll see more of these guys. So we have the original Haldir plus Haldir from the blister pack that was released later on, with the sword and the bow on his back. Really, yeah, I don't know what's happened to the face of this one, but yeah, it isn't good, is it? Yeah, again, painted when my kids were small. Yeah, the colors are good, but the faces are not. Now, as I show you the rest of the Haradrim force I painted up, I think this is a good time to talk about my painting process, because I've painted up a bunch of these and I've written down all the colors I used, so it should be easy to find and try to follow along. So if you like my painting scheme of these guys, you can follow along by doing this. So base coat was a black, matte black. I think I used Citadel rattle cans at this point. And then we have Kislev flesh as the skin tone, which was then like a couple of layers, thin layers of that, followed up with Reichland flesh shade, and then laid up again with Kislev flesh, and then a mix of Kislev flesh and flayed one flesh. For the gold, that's the next step. Retributor armor was used, and then Seraphim sepia was done all over the place, and then we did Retributor armor and Rune Fang steel. And I've written a comment, mix Caribou crimson in for the chainmail. So the lower, like the bottom male portion, I mixed in some red ink with this sepia to blend it and make it stand a bit more out. For the boots and braces, we did Rhinox hide, followed by a mix of Rhinox and Screaming Skull, and then some like what's it called? Lining of snakebite leather, which is now called XV88, I think. Then we did the Under Armour midriff. That was Galvoback red mixed with Rhinox hide, and then Galvoback and Vazdaka. And then for the extreme highlights, we mixed in some Kislev flesh. For the robes, it's back again to the Galvoback red with Rhinox hide, and then pure Galvoback, and then Galvoback and Kislev flesh. For the cloaks, we did Thunderhawk blue, then with Drakenhof Nightshade shading, then pure Thunderhawk, and then Thunderhawk and Administratum grey as the highlights. For the hair, I did pure blondes all over the place. So it's Morghast bone followed by Seraphim sepia, and then Screaming Skull highlights. For the wood, I used Rhinox hide, and then a mix of Rhinox and Screaming Skull, and then a Wildwood believe that is a contrast to shade it back down again to make it a bit more subtle. And then for the spare shafts, I did Steel Legion Drab with Steel Legion and Screaming Skull. Now the banner have some like for the red capes and armor. I started writing it, but I did not finish. I believe I've used corn red as a base, followed up by some Kislev flesh mixed in on multiple stages, and the non-metallic metal bits for the banner is just highlighting up XV88, I believe, up to very light beige. So yeah, hope you like that, and please do comment below what you think of me, like basically revealing my my recipes for painting these guys, because I had very much fun painting these guys, and there will be more Galadrim showing up later on in this video as well. So now we've come to the Harad portion of the campaign, where we needed some Watchers of Karna. So I painted up 12 of them, and this will be basically my painting scheme for my own Harad horde, which will be a bit more muted tones, not that much flashy like purples and reds and stuff like that when you look at Games Workshop's army. I wanted a bit more muted color scheme, so I looked at a bunch of reference material like Bedouin and like Lawrence of Arabia and stuff like that, and I really wanted like a different style for the Watchers of Karna. Oddly enough, I painted them first, but I did remember way back in 2005 I painted up what was supposed to be the tester model for my entire Harad army, and I remember I painted that cloak beige. So if you see the undercloak, that's beige, but the top coat is black. So what I want to do for the rest of my Harad force is to do that in reverse. So black detailing, but with a beige robe and stuff like that. So we'll see how that pans out when I'm doing this force. But these were fun to do. Sneaky lads. Like cool. But I wanted to bring some color into them, so I did the blue, like opal gemstones, in addition to the golds on them as well. And they do have eyes. I'm mad for trying to paint eyes on these guys, but I did it. Next up were my half trolls. So we did need 12 of these guys for one game. I think I needed 3 for the other portion of the campaign, but 12 were needed for the Strike of the Serpent scenario. So I painted up all 12. And yeah, I didn't find my painting guide. I know I have it someplace, but this is definitely the roadmap for my Mahud 2.0, so I have to find it at some point. I used some inspiration for when I painted my cave trolls for the skin, so like brownish greys, mottled and blended into each other. Some like fletching, no, what's it called? Knotted reeds, stuff like that for the so it's different browns and beiges for the wood and the things they have around their necks. Basically, I'm lost for words. And bluish tones were used because I really like blue for my hood for some reason. my old Mahud army was painted blue, so I'm pretty certain my new one will be as well. So here we go. We are delving into some models I needed to paint, because at some point in the campaign, like in a couple of months, we needed 24 clansmen of Losanak. But that scenario was like filmed a year ago or something. I think it was filmed in April or May of 2023, and that scenario isn't even out yet. But we were lucky enough to be lent an entire Umbar force, so that's why these guys were painted in advance, because we wanted to film it while we still had the models. So 24 clansmen of Lamedon were painted, in addition to Angbor the Fearless. I tried very light tartan, not like very intricate, but some light tartan work. There are 3 or 4 different hairstyles on these guys. Pretty simple, but it's a big number. 25 models painted for the Lamedonians. They're cool. So of course, when you have 24 clansmen of Lamedon, you of course need 24 axemen of Losanak. Did I say Losanak for the clansmen? I meant Lamedon for those. So we only ever need 12 of these guys for all the different scenarios, but I did have 24. Plus I scrounged up an additional model as well and put a banner on him. And we do have the Following the Fat here as well. Very Gondor style, like metals, beige and black. So not a lot of colours on these guys, but they do stand out, at least from their different poses and weapons. In addition to that, they only have plate on their breasts. So the banner was made from using a spare banner from the Forge-Old / Warhammer Foot Knights of the Lammoth box. I don't know how many of those boxes I bought, but it's not few. So I do have a few extra banners, and I replaced the entirety of the halberd with a brass rod, and then I plonked up is it a spear shaft? So the spear shaft on top is from the resin kit. Yeah. But these guys turned out alright. I won't ever need as many as I've painted, but I did have all the models, so why not? So an army I never actually thought I would have to paint for the campaign was the Dale army, and yeah, it happened. We had to start filming it, and the other models weren't done. So the filming of the grand campaign was done by me painting up the additional models, but with the plastic troops being done by the other Andreas. So I painted up both Bard the Second and Brand, and we also had 2 captains done, a musician and a banner bearer. I really like the banner bearer. That's a very nice sculpt. We had some trials and tribulations with these guys, because I don't know how many replacement sets I I got from GW slash Warhammer slash Forgeworld, because the top bit of the hats were gone from the blister. It's broken off and completely gone. So I think I have like 9 additional models or something I would never use, so I'll give them away or sell them at some point, I think. But these were really fun to paint, and I'll talk more about my Dale army in my next video, when I present to you my pile of shame. Because there are plenty more models where these guys came from which aren't even finished. So this is an army I actually have a painting scheme of, and while I show the rest of the models and the 12 Knights of Dale I painted up, let's talk about how I painted them up. So this was when I started like mixing up my my undercoating. So these are undercoated black and then with a Zenithal grey highlight spray. So I painted the skin first because that's the most inner bits of the model, with Cadian flesh tone highlighted with, well, shaded with Reikland flesh shade, and then a mix of Cadian and flayed one flesh for the highlights, giving them a bit of a brownish purplish look. For the trousers I went for Skin Blight Dinge with Nuln Oil, and then highlighted with Skin Blight Dinge and Administratum Grey. Boots are straight up black with some Administratum Grey added on to the black for the highlights. I did Administratum Grey and Army Painter matte white for the highlights of the undershirts. Armour and leather were painted with Rhinox hide with multiple gradients of Scrag brown added in. Cloak is corn red with Carroburg crimson shading, and then corn red with Kislev flesh added in increments, highlighting it up. Weapons are lead belcher with Nuln Oil shade, pure lead belcher, and then rune fang steel for the highlights. The gold slash copper is Army Painter Greedy Gold with Seraphim Sepia, and then Bright Gold for Army Painter for the highlights. The non-metallic metal gold details for the banners and the embroideries are Towlight Ochre with Flayed One Flesh added in the increments. For the fur trims we have Rakath Flesh with black and mixing with medium to shade it, and then Rakath Flesh with white added for the highlights. That's basically how I painted my Army of Dale, which isn't done by long shots. Speaking of armies that isn't done, welcome to the Iron Hills. So we of course needed some Iron Hills for the Grand Campaign, and yeah. So I've painted up the heroes, Dane, King Under the Mountain, and his son, Thorin III, Stonehelm. I also painted up, well, I started painting up my entire army of Iron Hills, but of course I didn't finish it. So I have to talk about that in a couple of weeks for my next video. But yeah, these are fantastic models. Really enjoyed them, but time wasn't on my side. So I managed to paint up the characters. 3 characters, a banner bearer, 12 guys with shields and spears, as well as 6 mattocks and 6 of the crossbows. And that's what is needed for the Grand Campaign. I do have 18 crossbows and a bunch of mattocks and a bunch of spares to finish painting. I have an additional banner, a few captains more, loads more to paint for this army. but you'll hear me talking about that when I present my pile of shame in my next video. Painting in the Iron Hills was also something I wrote down, luckily, since I have to paint more of them. So we have started with the armor, Iron Warriors with Nuln Oil added for the shades, and then Pure Lead Belcher for the highlights. So a muted down color scheme. I'll probably do some on the heroes stuff like that. I'll probably do some more detailing. For the woods, it's dried bark with Baneblade Brown added for the extreme highlights and the wood grain. Skin is Cadian flesh tone with Reikland Flesh Shade added as a shady agent, and then Cadian flesh tone and Kislev flesh mixed for the highlights. We have 4 different colours of beards, which I used Mechanicum Grey, Scrag Brown, Abaddon Black and Rhinox Hide, and then various different highlights for the 4 different tones of beards I used. The clothing is Skein Blight with Nuln Oil added, and then for the leather straps it's Rhinox Hide with Flayed One Flesh highlights, and then the red cape for the captain and the banner is basically the same reds I used for my Dale project. One of my big things with Iron Hills was I wanted to paint up a huge army very, very fine and fast. But then time restraints with the Grand Campaign made it so that I only finished 28 models for the army. Wanted to finish more. Definitely wanted to finish more. But they are on a list, my big list, and I probably will finish them at some point or other, hopefully in 2024. We will see what is actually happening with that. I don't think I have the actual tutorial for the white I've used for the shields. I believe it is Flayed One Flesh or something like that with white added. Not sure why I didn't write that down, because that's going to be important at some point. Even more armies I didn't finish, and we've come to my Beornings. So 2 scenarios in the Grand Campaign required Beornings, and I have 30 of the Beornings in addition to Grimbeorn and Beorn. The only model I've actually finished is Grimbeorn in his bear form. So I have to do some work on I think 15 of the Beornings, as well as the dismount, well not dismount, the Grimbeorn not in bear form is done. Essentially done. They just need some more detailing. So not too much work to be done on them for them to be finished. So those will definitely be a priority this year to finish my my Beorning army. Next up on the painting blog is Razgush and what's his name? Musgur. That's his name. So these were definitely painted just in one sitting, just figuring out colors as I went. So I don't have a particular painting guide for this. I try to do rusted metals, different types of texture on the metals as well, using stippling techniques and stuff like that. So not really something I can talk about in depth of what colors I used, other than I went really different paths with all the different types of textures on these models. They are definitely nice models to paint, really fun, loads of details on them, and yeah, pretty brutal in the game as well if you've seen the episodes these were in. And we return to Lothlorien with Celeborn, in his unarmored and armored form. Now this, kids, is why you write down the paint to use, because these were painted 2 or 3 years after my last Haradrim were painted, and let me tell you, it is very, very, very good idea to write down the paint to use, because then you get an army that looks the same, even though they were painted with 3 years apart. So so yeah, I painted up Celeborn as well as Galadriel's mirror. I didn't get a nice shot of it from above, but there is some water effect inside the mirror as well, and it was painted metal. It looks grey on the photo here as well. And I did a entire army of the unarmored Lothlorien elves. So we have a captain, a banner, the 2 unarmored Haldir versions, as well as 8 each of the plastics. So 2 spruce worth of the, no, 3. Yeah, 2 spruce of the plastics. No, definitely 3 spruce of the plastics. I'm lying. 2 spruce of the plastics. Wow, it's getting late. And then I painted up the 3 sentinels, all the 3 sculpts of the sentinels, as well as the 4 additional different sculpts of the metal archers. Now these were a bit of a slog to get through. If you've seen the plastics, they don't have the most inspiring faces and facial details to paint, as well as there is a huge amount of dead space on the plastic models. Not necessarily the best looking models in the world, but I did what I could with them, and some of them look nice, some of them not. And I for one choose to blame the sculpts and not my painting. But yeah, the sentinel in the middle with a flute is my definite favorite miniature of the whole line. It's so nice, such a nice miniature. Tell you what, I forgot. I have to include those at some point. I painted up loads more miniatures for my Galadrim army, which I haven't taken videos of. That's a shame. I have to do that. So that has to be an addendum to this video. So I did paint up both versions of Rumil, Orofin, as well as 13 of the Gods of the Galadrim Court. I totally forgot about those. So yeah, I have to include those as an addendum. They were painted in 2023 along with these guys. Damn, I'm really proud of them as well. So you have to, guess I could include them in my my January video as an addendum. When the Grand Campaign craves you painting up Warg Marauders, you say how many, and when the Grand Campaign says 3, you paint up 5. That's just the way it is. Luckily, I had my old painting guide, which I cannot find now for some odd reason, to hand when I painted these. I painted up 100 or something Moria goblins before, and luckily I knew exactly how to paint my wargs and how to paint my Moria goblins, because I've written it down. So again, write down your painting schemes for future use. So I think we're coming into quite recent times now, November, late October, mid-November. We had to paint up some of the Nazguls and Fel Beasts. So as just a tester for myself to see if I remembered how I painted my my original Nazgul, I remembered that the Witch King got a new plastic kit, so I painted up 2 of him in both versions, one with the Morgul crown and one without, and yeah, try to replicate, because back then when in 2018 or something, when I painted up my ring rates, I didn't write down what I used for colours. But again, a very monochromatic colour palette with, I think it's Skaven Blight with layers of highlights, with Administratum added, with muted colours of metallics here and there. So not a wide variety of colour on these models, but they are nice. I really like the sculpt. Very dynamic horse, very characterful. I didn't tackle the new diorama kit when I wanted to at this point, but yeah, the Get Out of the Way road diorama, I really wanted to paint up that one as well, but I stayed the course and I painted up these guys first, and then I started tackling the Fel Beasts. So my initial plan for the Fel Beast were to paint them, how many was it? 17, I think. I have 17 of them lying in my cupboard, but only 4 were realized. 3 normal ones and the Witch King. So what I wanted to do was basically do the Witch King and 8 vanilla ones, and then I wanted to do each of the additional 8 named ones. So 1 for Camille, 1 for the Shadow Lord, etc. Like Nick Baton did for his treatise in White Dwarf, I think. There's a White Dwarf article. I don't remember which White Dwarf it is from, but there is a White Dwarf featuring all of his 9 mounted named ring rates, and I really wanted to do something like that, but that will have to wait because time constraints made it such that I couldn't finish 17 ring rates on Fel Beasts at the time I had it, because I needed to move on to something bigger, and I mean bigger. But I also went ahead and made a objective marker out of the chopped off Nazgul, the chopped off Fel Beast head that is included in the Death of the Witch King diorama. So we're in mid-December, and I figure we need some Morannon Orcs for the Grand Campaign. And yeah, things were said and things were done. There's not much I can say about that. Then I was mad at the point of inception, and yeah, when I looked at it, we needed something like 50. 50 Morannon Orcs for the biggest scenario in the Grand Campaign. And I said to myself, well, I have about 300 of these guys lying about. Why not paint up 10 sprues? How long can that really take? So yeah, I painted up 120 Morannon Orcs in plastic, plus heroes. So here we have the captains, so both metal original captains. We have the casualty or dying Morannon Orc from the Death of Gothmog diorama kit. We have the second version of the Master of Reserves, and the newest Forge-Old / Warhammer model of him. The first one I didn't want to go through the hassle of making one in plastic with a conversion sprue from Battle Games in Middle-earth. I didn't want to do that. Then we have the Gothmog's Enforcer model, as well as a banner. And yeah, 120 plastic Morannon Orcs. So how I tackled my Morannon Orcs was quite simple, really. Metal was heavily dry brushed. Then I put a shade in and I highlighted it, and then I did the reds, and then I did the browns, the leather and the wood, and then I did the skin. So the skin was painted using Garfie's technique, painting Hunter Orcs on his Taylor Painter's blog site. So I picked out 5, I made my own inks out of Citadel paints. So I had a green, brown, a flesh tone, different shades. So I made about 5 different shades, and painted it up to very, very light grey, and then I shaded it down with different shaders, and then I did the eyes. 120 pairs of eyes. Well, some of them have helmets, so there wasn't any eyes on those guys, but you know. Tedious work, but that rounded off my year. So that's all the models I've painted, except I didn't show you my Gods of Glathrin Court, Andrew, Mill and Orofin. So it's 16 models you haven't seen from the past few years, but I'll include those in my next video. So yeah, a lot of models over 4 years, but it's not 1 a day, and it's definitely not 3 a day. So stay tuned for my work and plans for 2024 in a couple of weeks. So see you guys then.
So that was my efforts from 2023, until 2023, from roughly March 2019. Yeah, it's a sizable number of miniatures, but bear in mind, I'm always aiming for at least 1 model a day. That's my goal, as an average. But as you can see, my number here doesn't average 4 years. Then the number would be in the thousands. But it is what it is. I had a few kids. I had a lot going on in my life. But now I'm back on the wagon. I'm painting like ever before, as you saw with my Morannon Horde painted up in 2 weeks' time. So I can produce a good amount of models. And a bit of a spoiler, my 2024 model list is 1,050 models long, if I manage to complete everything. And yeah, so here's hoping I can do 3 models a day to knock out that huge amount of models, but I don't think that's possible. I do have a ranking system. I do have what I prefer to paint over something else. So we'll see what I can do. So join me back in a year's time to see my 2024 retrospective, and Here's hoping I smash my goals. And thank you all for watching. Please comment, like, share and subscribe. And please consider supporting us on Patreon using the link in the description below. It is a great way for you to support us here at the studio, and it means a lot to us. So thank you very, very much to all our past, present and future patrons. But as always, support your hobby.